there is a role that the institution can and should have played. And if there had been attention to resolve those issues, perhaps we wouldn't be here today. Nguleko, you're in KZN. You want to talk about this issue of Walter Sisulu University?
Yes. And I would like to send my heartfelt condolences to the students of Walter Sisulu University and the family.
Nguleko, I'm going to ask you to try and move around a bit. That connection to you isn't great.
Mamas en papas wat vinnig 'n halfuur kan wegloop om net te kyk hoe speel hulle kind cricket of golf of hokkie. Al hierdie geleenthede bied
producing accommodation, but no one is taking care of that. And that has become a problem. We are looking at students each and every year. What are they doing about it? Nothing. We are calling on the elite, the government, to intervene on such instances and ensure that our students are safe in universities or higher learning institutions, because they are the future of this country and they are the ones who are going to make change in South Africa. And we as parents, we send students there to study so that they can better their lives and improve the lives we are living as parents. But it is very sad that send kids to go study and they come back dead. It's very sad. And we are calling on government to make a swift intervention on this one. And the worker who killed a student must face the end of justice.
Okay.
He must go to prison. Killing. Well,
let's leave it there. You've made a very strong point about just what happens when the necessary role players, they almost bury their head in the sand, right, and hope that the problem self-resolves. But it's not going to self-resolve. If anything, it is getting worse. And unfortunately, this then becomes a consequence of that issue. We're going to take the latest news headlines. I will, of course, continue to take your calls on the open line shortly.
Good morning. In the headlines, the American missionary who was allegedly kidnapped during a church service in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape last week has been found unharmed. This follows the Hawks rescue operation. The Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa has called on the authorities to ensure justice is served in the case of 2 doctors and 6 nurses. The 8 are accused of attempted murder, fraud, and selling human organs.
Pressure keeps mounting, and the thirst for maximum points has drastically increased. FC Union Berlin and VfB Stuttgart are in a tense battle for victory. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on FC Union Berlin versus VfB Stuttgart on Saturday, 19 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
at safm.co.za. Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
Good morning, Katie. I'm Tabatero on that killing of a student in the Unita University. Katie, as I said before, me, I'm not targeting the color of a person when it comes to the killing of innocent people. That is why now I said I'm moving forward, but not forgetting the past, because I'm aware of the killings of 1976. I'm aware of all the killings that happened to our innocent black people. But still, there are killings of the black people by the black people. But really, that person was tempted in that University of Unitra.
Much as they're saying it's not registered, they know very well there's issues of registration, and our student was still pursuing NFSAS to assist them with registration. He has been a student, he was a student last year. There's no one who just come out of nowhere and come for fight for residential issues on campus. That's very disgusting coming from the university spokesperson to say that they don't know that person is not registered. They don't know what they are doing on campus. Very pompous. I'm very happy. I have also student activists in the university. Thank you very much, Kathy. It's organic content.
Good morning, as Kathy, and good morning to SAS listeners. Batman Rastenbeck here. I think one of the biggest problems now with the higher education system is that people are using NSFAS fund to benefit themselves, to benefit their own friends, to benefit their own families. Because now the problem with this NSFAS thing is that the people who are providing accommodation, there are also gaps in the system where they are providing accommodation, colluding with the student, colluding with some of the accommodation institutions because of lack of auditing of that institution. And now it's frustrating to the student who are in need of accommodation. It's frustrating, and you got a government that is always reacting to a problem very late. They're trying to react to a problem. That's why maybe it lead to this kind of violence. Thank you.
#SAFM Talking Point.
Yeah, thanks for your input so far. I still come back to the question of leadership. There has been a month for the role players here, the institution, those running the residences. There has been a month to intervene, to de-escalate, and you can't de-escalate without leadership, right? That's the role of leadership. So why was it allowed to get to this point? Why has it been allowed to get to this point? Zio in the Eastern Cape, good morning.
The statement from this anonymous guy, it doesn't add up anything. I'm not going to talk about what right or what, but there is no someone here who just shoot people without being unsafe. There's no way. You are close to him, and you see the need to shoot it. You must not act as if these children are not coming from our society. These children are a microcosm of society, a society that is violent. So they are acting like that. In many years, you see these children, students, dying the same institution that they're supposed to protect. We are seeing countless times. Ask yourself, why did the management took up a decision that they must not visit one another? You will find out that they have 10 like institutions to do something immediately. I would like to understand why they were banned to attend one another even during the day. There must be a reason. You must something has to be done, something has to be given in this decade. You cannot have such kind of a society which is so lawless while we said we have leadership. But there are definitely no issues on advocate Talimbof. I see there's one to be, there's some kind of a concerted attack on Talimbof. Because last time I talked about the banana issue, our judiciary is so rotten. But at the same time, you have a judiciary which is being used, is being run somewhere to attack people who they feel like they are so vocal. People they feel like they will expose the rot within the system. Look, when we talk about Talimbo, don't talk about an ordinary advocate. You see these young guys who are defrauding people with their rough man on the road, who are all over mushrooming on the street. We talk of the man with a silk. A silk is something which is high within the profession of the judiciary. But now, what we are saying, the media, together with this pedagogy mafias and others, who want to attack the career of advocate Talimbo. Because Talimbo has been with the people on the ground
protest somewhere, when there's a protest from Alex going into Sandton that affects the traffic on the M1 highway, the Greyston Ridge off run, etc., you are not going to find that the middle class often that is driving into Sandton to their jobs, they're not going to stop and say, no, but what are these people complaining about? How can we support them? Shouldn't we join them? Often, the response is that, oh my gosh, what are they doing? I need to get to work. Is that not the case though?
In that case, yes, I understand. But in this case, I'm talking about within the community. Because how many parents are there that in way? How much you know our system is working anyway out there. But those are directly to that particular situation. What are they saying? Because they take money.
I'm saying it's no different, Temba. I'm saying it's no different. Because the child of that parent who's protesting in Alex is still going to end up at an institution of higher learning with the child of the parent who's trying to get to work. And so the disparity and the disconnectedness doesn't begin at the institution. It begins in our society. It begins with the inequality and how we, on a day-to-day, respond to that inequality. So there isn't going to be a magic trick that suddenly, now that we're in the same institution, then there's a level of solidarity or camaraderie. Unfortunately, it's not how it works.
I think I need to back my notice and that is and how it was about this was all because either than I go. I just like to see in the order that to how we work on we have a complete look at society.
And Timber, when there are protests at your child's institution of higher learning, what do you say to them? Be honest.
Sorry.
When there's a protest on campus, if you hear about a protest where your child's, at your child's either university or school, what would you say to them?
Look, I believe that something like that, if I I'm like them out here and then
We are born.
No, I agree with you. That's why I believe that when you get there, I'm going to say, hey,
Yes.
if I'm fighting for their home and I'm fighting for other home, we're supposed to support you. Anyway, they will end up people there at home.
Yeah. Timber, something to think about. Timber out in Durban. Anonymous, you're also in Durban. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Jackie. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Go for it.
Wonderful. I just want to touch on two very important matters. The first being the South African envoy to the USA. I just want to put into light, and people need to read between the lines and understand that the process and the people that are involved in the negotiation, do they really truly stand for South Africa in its entirety, or are there selfish interests behind the way that people were chosen? I'd like to put into question, for example, that in 2000, the early 2000s, there was a telecommunications service provider in South Africa. It was competing for a license in Iran, and there were many discrepancies up to the point of a former ambassador to Iran, South African, getting arrested by the Hawks in South Africa. And it's a known fact that in the United States, they said that they're going to probe that particular case because it involved bribery and it involved the US dollar in whatever capacity.
Anonymous, are you talking about the matter involving MTN?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So MTN is an interest in the negotiations because it's part of the economic crimes that are being investigated, right? Is it not a coincidence, or is it a coincidence, or was it done purposefully to send the chairperson of the board to be the special envoy chairperson? Number one. Number two, who is he going to report to? Is he acting for the interests of South Africa, or is he acting for the interests of MTN? Because any honorable person with international relations experience or advice would have said this is going to be a clear conflict of interest that's going to further show our incompetence as a country, because they will ask, okay, you're here, you said this about Donald Trump, fine, everybody says at whatever time, but this issue, are you here to represent your country or private interests? And who was chairperson of that NTN board when these discrepancies took place? I just want to ask that question. Do South Africans know that?
So, Anonymous, you basically believe that all of this would be linked to a conspiracy of sorts for MTN and the former chair, who is the current president of the Republic.
They must tell us why they appointed the specific person that they appointed.
Absolutely. So Anonymous, for me, on the question of interest, I think that's a very, very important question, right? Because we know that in the world that we live in, there are always interests at play. There are always forces behind the scenes, right? Some of the critical questions perhaps would be, okay, so there's an individual who's got obviously a very strong influence in communications. We know that part of the breakdown of the relationship has also had to do with the communications sector and Starlink, Elon Musk, etc., etc. So there's perhaps lower hanging fruit in as far as what the potential interests or lack thereof could be. But time will tell. We'll have to watch and see how things unfold. But it's a very important question. Anonymous out in Durban, we'll leave it there. All right, it's time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, American missionary kidnapped in Gqeberha, rescued, and UK's Supreme Court to rule on definition of a woman. Good morning. The American missionary who was allegedly kidnapped during a church service in Gqeberha, the Eastern Cape last week, has been found unharmed. This follows the Hawks rescue operation. The 45-year-old missionary was found inside a vehicle at a safe house in a suburb in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. Hawks spokesperson Avile Fumba says the operation resulted in a shootout in which 3 suspects were killed.
As officers approached the house, they observed a vehicle on the premises. The suspects inside the vehicle, upon seeing the law enforcement, allegedly attempted to flee and opened fire on the team. The officers responded with tactical precision, leading to a high-intensity shootout in which 3 unidentified suspects were fatally wounded. The victim was found inside the same vehicle from which the suspect had launched the attack. Miraculously, unharmed, he was immediately assessed by medical personnel and is currently in an excellent condition.
The Democratic Nursing Organization of South Africa, DENOSA, has called on authorities to ensure justice is served in the case of 2 doctors and 6 nurses. The 8 are accused of attempted murder, fraud, and selling human organs. They allegedly harvested organs from unsuspecting patients during surgeries for profit. They will be back in the High Court in Gqeberha, the Eastern Cape, after appearing yesterday. DENOSA's provincial chairperson, Violwe Notlau.
The NPA and the justice system throughout has to attend to this case. We want to see justice prevail. We want to restore the people's faith to the healthcare system. So we call upon the government and the justice system to dig deeper and strengthen our health system, and including the legislative framework, because we find that those that have been brought to book, many times they tend to run away. So that is what we are advocating for while we are looking into the matter, and we are going to follow the profile here.
The South African National Defence Union says it rejects what it terms the coerced attendance of a religious gathering for SANDF members. The union says it has been made aware of a WhatsApp message message. The acting chief of SANDF is purported to have issued ordering members to attend the Easter church service at the Tabatswane City Hall in Pretoria this morning. According to the message, only members with the SANDF chief's approved reasons will be excused. SANDF's National Secretary Mafikeng says such an order should be revoked.
It violates the constitutional rights of the members involved. It violates the constitutional principle that the state may not force citizens to attend religious gatherings. If these members were to be charged for not attending the service, then SANDF will defend them.
The Road Traffic Management Corporation, RTMC, says 1,155 vehicles have been impounded for violating the traffic regulations since the start of the Easter Road Safety Campaign last month. The corporation has advised public transport operators to ensure they have appropriate permits. This as travelers head to holiday destinations and places of worship during the Easter long weekend. RTMC spokesperson Simon Zwane.
Let's rock up with a strong winning mentality. This is the Hollywood Super League. Experience the exciting battle between JBWFC and TS Galaxy Queens on Sunday 20 April at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proud brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
It's an interesting time with regard to the Trump administration.
South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it.
Of course, everybody's doing a calculation and speculating on what could be included. The safest thing to do is to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number.
The African countries almost have to think of what I would call the coalition of the movement, looking into various countries and saying who has been badly affected by the US and how can they open up the room for engagement on that.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show as we lead conversations that move us. Coming up in this hour for Citizens Corner, we're going to be looking at the UIF and in particular the labor centers and some of the challenges that are being experienced at the country's labor centers. Before we get into it, however, some of your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Good morning, Katie, and the SAFM listeners and everyone in the studio. This is Johnny from Edinburgh. Katie, that student, that anonymous student you talked to a few minutes ago, he said they were protesting because they want Wi-Fi and they want fridges. I mean, is that the standard? Our education is now in, the students protesting for Wi-Fi and for fridges. Oh, I mean, come on, it's just ridiculous. That can only happen in South Africa. Is this so the mindset and the level our education is in and the students are in now? What a pity. Our country is going down in every asset. It's going down. What a pity. Thanks, bye.
Greetings, Kathy. I just want to make a comment on the Walter Sisulu University incident. I do not believe that the resident manager opened fire at the students without feeling attacked. I believe that there was a threat on his life, and his first instinct was to protect himself and his family. To what extent the attack was on him, it still remains a mystery. However, having been a student from the years 2012 to 2016, I've also engaged in such protests against the residents, managers, due to the poor support and poor living conditions in the residents. And we did engage in such a protest where we also attacked the resident manager. And the university residents, managers, they just don't care about the students.
Good morning, Kathy. I think as a society, we are overprotecting these students. If NFSAS paid money mistakenly into the account, and then they are saying, no, we made a mistake, please go and the residents. The students need to be responsible enough to take the money and pay the residents. Just like me, when you get your salary, you pay your rent or you pay your bond. So there's nothing wrong with that. And this issue of protesting, I think it's getting out of hand in this country. This is someone in Bulugwane. Thank you.
Good morning, Kathy. You know, this whole thing with the university and the killing of that campus. Where is the Minister of Higher Education? If the university is not making comment, why is the Minister not making comment? But I also need actually to say that this whole killing is something that was bound to happen because students think they can riot, they can do as they please just because they don't get answers that they are happy with, or no answers. But no amount of no answers justifies rioting on campus, and that person probably thought his life was in danger. Mark from Cape Town.
Well, Mrs. Katie, we really send our heart condolences to the family of the student who was shot by a rest manager. So we are very sorry, Mrs. Katie. So it shows that the guy was not properly trained in terms of how to deal with people, how to manage people. Because I've heard that the guy was a security personnel, Mrs. Katie. So the guy was just parachuted on the position. Thanks, Mrs. Katie. It's not here in Boksburg.
Looking for an MBA that works wherever you do? Henley Business School Africa offers the only international MBA in South Africa, backed by a global network of over 100,000 alumni, leaders in 155 countries, ranked by alumni potential. Henley gives you the connections, confidence, and capability to succeed locally and globally. This is your invitation to join a opportunity. Visit henleysa.ac.za.
The wait is over. I've been hustling, grinding, and now it's time for the glow up you've been waiting for. Unapologetically, lead the way. From the grind, the glam. Anelazondo, the glow up on Saturdays at 8 a.m. only on SABC 1. Mzansi, for sure.
If you're active on social media at SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places.
Simply because of the very same reasons. Rather than complaining, I think I'm going to make proposals because this has been going on for years. One, I'm calling on my colleague on the platform, the chairperson of the Committee of Employment and Labor, to convene organized labor and organized business to the committee and the management of UI, so that we can get to discuss these issues and hold management to account if there's any management. I'm not saying if there's any management likely, because if really there's management of UI who are on a daily basis are told about the suffering of contributors, and I'm saying of contributors versus workers and employers who are contributing on behalf of workers, then they will listen to us and understand even proposals which we've been making, we want to make to make sure that this thing comes to an end. Because for as long as you have a labor center that services different spheres of departments, if you like, this problem is not going to disappear. A colleague of mine on Monday sent me a WhatsApp message to say one female worker applied for maternity. She has been on queues from 4 o'clock in the morning, around 10 o'clock. They are told that the system is down, please go home and come back. We are telling about a worker who's using a taxi. With a taxi fare, he must come back the following day. She requested an employer that today I will be at a labor center, then the following day must do the same. The next thing that going to experience is losing her job. That's the first proposal I want to make. Our experience is just telling what workers are going through at the labor center. And I hope my colleagues in the club and the members of the committee will take our proposal to heart so that we can deal with these matters. And there's just a lot. I want to stop there for now.
Jan, talk to me about the call center that you say you established as a result of this problem.